Next, we're going to have Candace Gorham. Candace Gorham is a licensed professional counselor with a background in middle and high school education. A former evangelical minister, she founded the Ebony Exodus Project to explore the reasons record numbers of Black women were leaving the church, and in 2013 published the Ebony Exodus Project, why some Black women are walking out on religion and others should too. She is on the advisory council of the Black Humanist Alliance of the American Humanist Association and is a member of the Secular Therapist Project and the Clergy Project. Candace currently lives in Durham, North Carolina with her daughter, Naomi. Her new book, On Death, Dying, and Disbelief, is available for pre-sale on Amazon. Please welcome Candace Gorham.
Hello, how is everybody today? You guys doing all right? Okay, so I am just going to talk to you a little bit about my new book, the Ebony Exodus Project. I'm not going to hold you too long so we can move on to the panel that's on death and issues like that. But yes, so I have a new book coming out on death, dying, and disbelief. A little bit about me. My background is my earlier years, I was Jehovah's Witness. And then about middle school, I got into, my family. I started going to what was the family church, which was United Methodist. And I got, confirmed in the United Methodist Church, and I sang in the choir and did all that stuff. And then in high school, I kind of drifted away a little bit. I got a little boyfriend, got a little job. So I kind of drifted away from church for a little bit in high school. And then my senior year in high school, my sister actually married a pastor, and it was non-denominational, but it was that evangelical, casting out demons, praying forever, fasting for days and weeks at a time. It was that more extreme variety. So I ended up getting involved in that church, because that was my sister and family and stuff. So I got involved in that, and I became ordained eventually as a prophetess, as an eldress in the church, evangelist. So I always tell people, I do prophesy, $5 for a prophecy. I got you. Just meet me out here in the hallway, and I will take care of you. Whatever you want, I'll make sure that's what's coming true for you. And I'll cast out a demon too. If you got a spouse or significant other that need a demon cast out of them, that's $10. I got you. Okay. So that's sort of my background there. It's a very religious background. Well, how did I get into, my first book was on Black women and Black women leaving the church and issues facing Black women in the United States. And I've done a lot of, talks and stuff about like the school to prison pipeline, issues related to teens in the system, that sort of thing, because that comes from my clinical background. But, what caused me to decide to write a book on death, dying, and disbelief is that high school sweetheart that I just told you about in 2019 died in a car accident. And we had reconnected. We both married and divorced and had kids, and then we reconnected. And so he was very special to me. And when he died, that was probably, the hardest thing that I've ever dealt with. My aunt, who was like my second mom, she died when I was in high school, suddenly out of the blue. And that was really hard on me too. But something about his death was just, it really took me off the deep end for a little while. And I'm gonna hold it together because I do still have a hard time talking about it. But for about a year, I went through a grief process in a way that I have never in my life experienced anything like that. So at the 1 year anniversary, the grief came back. I thought I was doing good, and the grief just came back and hit me just like it was day one. And I was like, we don't have any resources. Like as a non-believer, we don't have any resources for us when it comes to dealing with death and dealing with grief. This is really relegated to the realm of like the spiritual, right? People dying. We're going to talk about heaven. We're going to talk about, praying for you and all of that stuff. So I was just like, we don't have any resources. What are we supposed to do? At that same time, I had a couple of other friends who both had significant losses. So I was trying to support them in their losses. And it was just like, we as non-believers need some resources for ourselves. And so to sort of honor my love, I decided to write a book about grief and managing grief and working through it as a non-believer. And that's where this book came from. And then also, going to conferences and things like that. I have people know I'm a counselor, so I get a lot of questions about death and dying and, how do we mourn? And, is it okay to mourn this way? Is it okay to mourn that way? So because I'm moving along a little bit quicker, I'm kind of giving you guys an abbreviated version of one of my talks. And so you don't have the tips, but the book is organized in 10 little chapters, which I call tips in the book. And the gist with the book is that you should be able to open this book, close your eyes, point your finger on any page and find something concrete and something tangible that you can do today as a person in mourning to help yourself feel better. So it's very practical. It's very straight to the point. It's very personal. It's like a part journal, actually. So you really get into my grief process and what it was like for me. So it's very personal, but it's also very practical. And so you have these 10 tips. So I'm going to just read them out to you real quick. So the first tip is, yes, you can grieve without there being a deeper spiritual meaning. A lot of people worry that, oh my God, I'm starting to go crazy again. Like I think I hear their voice. And what if I was wrong? And I wish they were in heaven. I want to believe in heaven. So they start kind of going through this whole spiritual existential crisis again, or maybe for the first time, I don't know. And they start going through and they worry, like, am I about to slip back into being a believer? Because, and I mean, I've actually had people explain to me that I don't believe, but I'm in such distress. I want to believe so bad. I want to believe that he or she is watching me from heaven. And, I hear his voice. I hear her voice. I see her in my sleep. I definitely had experiences where I thought, like, if I was still a believer, I would have absolutely believed I was having some kind of spiritual experience. But knowing what I know about grief, I was just able to say, you know what, this is a function of the grief. And so in the first chapter, the first tip, I really try to just normalize the extreme distress that you're going through and what that can cause you to experience. So that's that first tip. The second one is be patient with your spiritual loved ones. And what I mean by that is, again, you live in America. This is, religion and Christianity is just woven into every day of everything. And so again, like I said, when people die, it's just natural to say, we're going to pray and we're going to do all this stuff and he's in heaven watching you and all that. And so I talk about how, some people worry about those loved ones and they worry about those people, kind of trying to push religion on them, or, like in the case of my love, he still believed in God, but he didn't really believe in Jesus, but his family didn't know that. So they preached him into heaven on his funeral. You know what I'm saying? As far as they concerned, he was in heaven right now, but that nobody really knew that side of him. So am I going to get angry and go, no, y'all, he didn't believe that. Y'all shouldn't do this. I ain't had the energy for that. So in that chapter, I talk about how, conserve your energy for something else. Don't worry about fighting with your loved ones who do believe that person is in heaven, or fighting with your loved ones who swear up and down they were still a Christian, even though they weren't, or whatever. You don't have, when you're in extreme distress like this, you don't have the energy for that. And so that's one of the things I talk about. It's just to encourage you to just be patient with them so that you don't waste that energy on your on them. The third tip is take care of your physical self. Take care of you. So go to the doctor. You know, take your medicines. Don't stop. Don't get so bogged down in your grief that you forget to take care of yourself. And I give some personal revelations there in that chapter as well about how I was not eating, I was not drinking, I lost a lot of weight. I was feeling like I was going to, one day I was driving to work and I felt like I was going to pass out driving. I had to pull over into the fire station and they, you know, checked my blood sugar. My blood sugar was super low and my blood pressure was super low. And I ended up going to the doctor and they found all these things wrong with me. And it was the grief. I was not eating. I was not drinking. I was not taking care of myself. So take care of yourself. You know, go to the doctor, let the doctor know that, you know, I recently suffered a loss and that so we can explore how that might be impacting your physical health. The fourth tip is attend to your psychological and emotional needs. And I spend some time in that chapter talking about, diagnoses and how so how you might begin to exhibit symptoms of certain diagnoses in the depth of your grief, and how that, you know, again, I sort of try to normalize that experience, that depression and anxiety, and maybe, you know, what somebody might consider psychosis, seeing the person and hearing the voices. You know, you may have some really extreme experiences like that. And even if you've never suffered from depression, you've never suffered from anxiety, you might begin to have it at this time. And what can don't be afraid to take an antidepressant or anti-anxiety or something like that. Like, don't say, oh, I've never had depression before, so I'm not about to take any medicine now. Well, if you're grieving, you're in a level of extreme distress that you may not have ever experienced before. And so you may begin to have those types of symptoms that something can take the edge off of for a little while. Tip 5 says, there is no time limit on grief. Be patient with yourself. So I talk in that chapter about how, you know, sometimes you might have friends and family who are trying to move you along a little bit faster. And hey, you've been grieving for a long time. You think it might be time to, pick yourself up again. And so I try to, again, normalize that, that experience that you may be having where you feel like maybe the grief is just going on for forever. And I kind of explore some of the reasons that friends and family may express those types of things to us, and try to sort of explain it from a different perspective and say, maybe, on the one hand, give yourself time and patience, but on the other hand, there might be some things that people are telling you that if you make some small changes, you might actually feel a little bit better. So that chapter's a little here or there. The sixth one is my absolute favorite. If you know me, you know that I love to hike and I love to camp. And actually, my sweetheart used to call me Hiker Girl. And so after he died, I got Hiker Girls tattooed on my leg. It's my personalized tag on my car. So I love hiking that much that it's all over me. So tip 6 is reconnect with nature. And I share research in there that talks about ways in which engaging with nature is good for us. It's good for our physical health. It's good for our mental health. I don't know if some of y'all may be familiar. There was a study about heart surgery patients and how they the patients who had views of natural scenes outside of their hospital windows, trees and birds and flowers, they actually fared better in their recovery, and they used less pain medications, had fewer complications. Pain medicine had fewer complications. Whereas the patients who all they had was just a regular window that maybe they looked onto another building or something like that, it wasn't nature. They had more problems. They had more complications. They used more pain medicine. And there's been a number of studies out along those lines that talk about the benefits of even just having pictures of nature on the wall in the hospital. They did another study where that was the only difference, was this one had pictures of nature on the wall and that those rooms didn't. And the difference is that those two sets of patients had. So reconnect with nature is a big deal. Get out there, go for a hike, go for a walk, just go sit on your porch and look at the birds. I kind of fell off of hiking for a little while because I was so grieved. And eventually it was just like, okay, he used to call me hiker girl. Like, I'm not honoring him. So let me get back up and go hiking again. And that was how I would just walking down, I would find the most obscure trails that I could find because I knew I was probably just going to cry the whole time that I was on the trail. And that's exactly what I would find, some extremely obscure spot. So I could just feel like I had the whole forest to myself and just cry on the trail and hope I don't run into anybody because they're going to think I'm crazy. And so reconnect with nature. Tip 7 says postpone major decisions. Postpone major decisions. Yeah, I'm trying to watch the time. Again, in that chapter, I talk about research on how stress impairs our decision-making capabilities, and the brain research that actually shows, like the executive functioning areas of the brain do not operate quite as well when you're extremely stressed out. That means you're going to struggle to make good decisions. You may revert back to sort of old behaviors and old scripts and old ways of thinking that just kind of feel like autopilot. And so you may not necessarily be making the best decisions when you're extremely grieved. So that's sort of what I talk about in that chapter. 8 is one of my other favorite tips. It says, do something in their honor. So, go hike a mountain, run a 5K, plant a garden in their yard, make a little, I use the word altar in the book for lack of a better word. And I talk about like how I know I don't like this word either, but, build a little something special that's like, this is for them, a certain area of a garden of your yard where you plant flowers that represent love, and this flower is red because that was her favorite color, like whatever, right? Just do something to sort of honor them. Go eat out at their favorite restaurant. Do something that raise a 40, like whatever you want to do, just that way you can say, okay, I'm doing this for him or her. So do something in their honor. Tip 9 is cry, and then cry some more. Some people don't have a problem with crying, and that's great. Other people do. Other people, they struggle to get those tears out. So I talk about the benefits of crying, and there's so much research that talks about the ways in which crying can be helpful, and the sort of the catharsis that you experience after you have a good cry. And our bodies produce natural opioids when we cry. Our bodies produce oxytocin, which is what they call the love hormone. Helps with bonding and stuff. Just all kinds of little things that there's research that's showing ways in which we do help. Crying helps. So that's tip 9. And then tip 10. So as you can see, the whole book is sort of geared towards a person who is in mourning or a person who's grieving. Well, tip 10 is geared towards a person who's trying to support somebody else who's in mourning. So I may not be mourning, but you are, and I need some tips about how to help you because I don't know how to help you. So that's what I talk about in that chapter. And I kind of reflect on some things that people tried to do to help me that maybe didn't work out so great, and I just sort of offer some advice to people who are trying to, support people in that way. So that's tip 10. And, that's pretty much the whole book. It, like I said, it goes quick. It's easy, to read. And I try to, like I said, keep it very practical and very straight to the point so that when I was in mourning, I would not have sat down and read some 200-300 page self-help book. Like, I need something practical that's just going to get me straight to the point. And I was talking to this guy the other day who I did an interview with him about the book. And shortly after we did an interview, somebody very special to him passed away. And so he had gotten a PDF copy of the book to prepare for the interview. And so we spoke again for the first time in several months this week. And he was explaining to me how it was so helpful to him. And there was like one tip in particular that he just kept going back to over and over again. It was like reading it every day and stuff. And so he spoke about the way that I'm actively mourning right now. And what you've done in this book is really helpful because it's so practical and it's so straight to the point. And I know I can do something today if I pick up your book. So, I mean, I'm not trying to brag about the book, but that's one little piece of, something positive that somebody said about what I did. So anyway, let me stop being silly. Anyway, so that's the book. And it's not available yet. It's coming out. It's supposed to be October 2nd, but apparently we've been informed that there's a paper shortage. So it's being extended to October 21st now. So you can order it on Amazon, Borders, Books, Barnes and Nobles, all those book sites. I haven't not recorded it as an audio book yet, but I intend to. So that'll be forthcoming, and it is digital as well. You can get the digital copy.